All right, Chelsea fans, welcome back to another episode of the London is Blue podcast. As always, your host, Brandon, Joe, my co-host, Nick, and Dan. And gentlemen, it is the Real Madrid leg 2 match review. Bit of a bummer. I thought maybe if I went back on Chelsea mic'd up, Dan, that I could give a pep talk through the spaces to the team. I was rallying troops. I had the people fired up. And then we lost.
Oh, we should have gotten you an invite to the locker room. That's what we should have done.
If you had access, yes. But instead, I'm hanging out with you, Nick. We're lamenting yet another predictable result. The way the season has gone, being down 2-0 in the first leg against Madrid is too rich for our blood this season.
Yep. Yeah, it turns out that you need things called goals to win matches. Just finding this out for the first time, so I'm pretty shocked about the whole thing. But I think up front, I just want to say this out loud. Like, there's a lot of feels out there right now. There's a lot of stuff that you'll probably hear on this show that will, I think you said lament earlier. I think that's a great way to phrase it. We always treat our listeners like they're adults. You guys are capable of feeling your own feelings. Many of you don't, even
when they don't.
Well, you think we're adults, Jim? That's so great of you.
Many of you don't feel the need to lambast everybody, even after a tough result. So, we're gonna be in our feels a little bit after our last Champions League match for some time on the men's side, and look to move on. But disappointing day, and the dream of Why Not Us, Dan, is officially dead. We don't ever have to say it again. Thank God.
For this season.
and next.
Well, I mean, it could work for a Premier League title.
Oh, yeah. That would be the most Chelsea thing, which we might talk about later. But look, we are going to talk about how we delivered plenty of pressure, but no final product. And what can Chelsea do, again, without European football? But as always, want to get a temp check from the people. The bleep button in full effect, and as we do the patented, always copied, never replicated 3-word match reviews.
Well, Captain Buzzkill with you. What now? ? Baseball. That's right. That is a terrible fate, unfortunately, if that is the sport that you transition to next. And that is someone who, generally likes baseball. Sergeant Soy Sauce with the Paramount Plus canceled. Mr. Thurman with the Bridge BOGO sale. You have Grizz with the LIBP should have stayed. And also, you fucking idiots. Look,
hard to argue.
Invite to anyone with a decision-making process. You can welcome us back at any time in resident. We record from the Bridge every single week, if that is what's required. Craig with the one good half, using the image of the horse that is stick on one half and beautifully drawn complete with shading and shadows on the other. Peter with riches of embarrassment. Mike with the Europa Conference League.
So good. Wow, that's amazing. How have I never thought of that, Peter? Well done.
Oh, when Nick has to stop me reading because he's so overjoyed at how well it worked.
You don't know.
Ian with the watch the women, which is absolutely right. You should watch the women's team play Barcelona this weekend and the rest of the season as they potentially go on to win the title and advance further in the Women's Champions League. And then, as you referenced earlier, Nick, ATX Blue with 500 days, not 500 days of summer. It is not the movie. It is, in fact, the earliest amount of time Chelsea have between now and playing in the Champions League once more.
Winter is coming, Dan. Winter is
here.
Yeah.
Winter is here.
I like how Ian had watched the women. Usually you can't say that, but in this context, you should. And
right. The context was important. The context was important in this scenario.
It is good.
Of embarrassment. Good Lord. That's fantastic.
I'm going to go last because I don't always win the party, but I won this time. So, Nick, what about you?
Into the desert.
Okay, hold up. You were just talking about winter. Now you're talking about a desert. What are we doing?
Well, we either one really works here. I went with Into the Desert because my brain was not on Game of Thrones, and then it was. So, we're going to be wandering the desert for a little bit here, folks. It's going to be tough. I don't know if it'll be 40 years.
Some biblical shit.
I think we have a little more control over that, but yeah, it's going to be a little dry, a little dusty for a while.
I think we should have put Colin the Super League. Hey, you guys still doing your thing? We might be interested.
No relegation sounds great.
Oh man, Dan, what about you?
Movie season underway, because with no Champions League, I can get a lot more movie watching done this coming season and throughout the summer in terms of preparing for this podcast. So look, there's a lot of good movies coming out this summer, and I'm just glad that Chelsea is giving me back a couple hours every week to devote to that. It was very, very thoughtful of them. They saw my letterbox was behind last season compared to the previous year. They wanted to help me out. Very, very thoughtful of Chelsea to be so considerate and think about only me in this decision to eject themselves out of the Champions League.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure Nick and I can sign you up for a new recurring midweek segment with somebody. Don't worry. We'll find a way to fill that void.
Yeah, definitely.
Let's actually think about this. Like, damn it. Now we have to come up with new content midweek because we're going to have Champions League.
Yeah, I know. I was thinking about that too. It's been, 6 years since we haven't had that sort of vibe in European football. Like, we were in the Europa League, obviously, done that before, but it's been a minute. we're gonna have to break out the old idea notebook and see what we got going on.
Honestly, it's the curse for content creators. You got to come with your own stuff. It's easier when you just react to what happened. All right. Big build up here. I put locker room bully. That's right. In terms of a bully, because apparently he's bowled his way in twice in a row now. And I can only imagine what he had to say to those players. People have kind of said maybe what it might not have been said. I know Matt Law had some exclusives on that. I read it. Wasn't a lot in it. I don't know what I was expecting, but it definitely wasn't a word for word transcript, unfortunately. Huge shout out to those of you in the Patreon. If you're looking for a Chelsea community, especially now, check out our Discord server, Apple Podcast, Spotify. Again, 5-star reviews help us be seen. So look, if Chelsea fans ever needed to find us, this is it more now more than ever, because people are at the bottom. They're at the rock bottom. They need a group. They need a family. Give us the 5-star review. It will help. All right. But we move ahead. It was Real Madrid this past Tuesday, the 18th of April, in the Champions League at Stamford Bridge. Chelsea 0, Real Madrid 2. On aggregate, 0-4. Goals, Rodrigo on the double, 58th minute and 80th minute. We don't do the fifth stand on Champions League. So, Dan, we have to go right into the lineup.
Well, it was Kepa between the sticks once more, with Trev Chalobah, Thiago Silva, and Wes Fofana as a back three, with Reece James, Enzo Fernandez, Mateo Kovacic, and Marc Cucurella as the 4, with N'Golo Kante and Conor Gallagher behind one Kai Havertz up at the top of the pitch. Look, we saw a 3-person sub and then a 1-person sub. The 3-person sub was Joao Felix, Raheem Sterling, and Mykhailo Mudryk coming on, and then Mason Mount was the single sub. Ewa Mendy, Cesar Azpilicueta, Dennis Zakaria, Carney Chukwuemeka, Lewis Hall, Ruben Loftus-Cheek, Hakim Ziyech, and Christian Pulisic, all unused substitutes. And for some of them, could be the last time that they sit on a bench for Chelsea in a Champions League appearance fixture.
Yeah, lucky us. Some of the top line stats: Chelsea with a 1.86 xG, Real Madrid 1.48. So, tried to cling to that, didn't work. We had 54% possession, huge swing from the weekend. We had 19 shots, only 6 on targets there, 9 shots to 6 on target. We had 7 off target to their 3. We had 6 block shots to their none. We had 2 offsides apiece. We had 16 fouls to their 8. Does that sound light to you, Nick? Only 24 fouls in the game?
A little bit. It was pretty chippy, but the referee let a lot of stuff go too.
That is true.
Yeah, it was. There were more fouls than what he called. Yes.
Yeah, that makes sense. 3 cautions to Chelsea. Madrid's 1. We had 2 big chances, missed both. Real Madrid had 3, missed only 1 of them.
Pretty
How
much. How must that feel? That must feel interesting.
I mean, look, there's no way they're missing the second one. I mean, they just passed around us like absolute traffic cones. Thibaut, busier on the day with 6 saves to Kepa's 4. And he prevented 0.91 goals. I mean,
So
alone,
good.
almost stopped the, just so frustrating. So frustrating.
It's so annoying.
Oh, all right. Well, that's it for most of it. One random stat coming from Naz of all people says Chelsea have failed to score in 18 different matches this season, the most blanks since the 80-81 season. If you've listened back to the fan cast and to Rick Lanville, you know, one of the best of days back in the early 80s. And so to have that be the situation now, it is no bueno. But Nick, you have an MPET shithouse moment of the match.
I do, largely because, you know, we're facing a former goalkeeper of ours, a player that many of us don't like. And as good as he was on the night, it was nice to see Kai get a little chip on him when he was chasing him down. The ball had left, and then Kai just left a little on him at the end. He fell over dramatically, which is not really a surprise, but yeah. That was a little shit house, and I appreciate it. You know, that'll probably be the last time that we have one of these for the rest of the season. So, you know, in any regard, it was a hell of a way to go out.
Chai hits latte.
That's good. I like that.
Did you see when Tebow went over to get the ball from the fans and he just chucked it up over his head, not giving it to him?
It's great.
All right. Well, we're going to hit our first ad break. When we get back, we're jumping into Tale of Two Halves and breaking down the match. So thank you to the sponsors, and we'll be right back. All right. Coming out of this one, plenty of pressure, but no final product. It was the tale of two halves. In the first, Chelsea found their groove and were able to put Madrid under pressure. Conte got plenty of time and space on the ball. Dan, you look at our midfield. We had a diamond. Connor, the absolute motor that he has. N'Golo Kante, absolute motor that he has. And then you had Kovacic and Enzo kind of holding it down behind him. And it seemed to work. If there's one thing you know about Real Madrid, Kroos and Modric are so good. And damn it, they can deliver the ball right where you don't want it. What did you make of Frank's very, very different lineup? Some might even call it a 3-6-1, a 5-4-1, whatever it was the first time we had ever seen this season.
Yeah. And you would wish that some of the chances didn't fall to N'Golo Kante, for as great as he is in terms of winning the ball and adding intensity to overall play. He's not the first individual, particularly as someone who has not scored a Champions League goal before, that you want having some of your best opportunities fall to him. However, I would say that this formation and this press did allow Chelsea to assert more dominance than we saw in the prior game. So where it was like a little bit more haphazard, a little bit more pulled together. This felt more intentional in the way that Chelsea wanted to play. Felt like they were willing to and capable of asserting themselves on getting on the ball, winning back the ball, being able to take advantage of situations. Nick, I know we're going to, people can fixate on the score, but at least in the first half, it felt as if, or the first half of the first half, it felt like Chelsea had a handle on the game and had an idea of like what could work to actually come back in this tie.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously the performance was better, much better than the weekend, much better than the performance last week at Madrid. Passing was sharper, the energy was higher, the pressing was much better. There was a lot to like in that first half. I mean, I think even Jamie Carragher, of all people, was like, yeah, Chelsea deserved to be up at halftime based on that performance. But our friend Thierry Henry reminded us that, Real Madrid this is what they do professionally. They understand how to take big moments in matches and make them their own. And, they didn't relent. They were in a shell and Chelsea put them under a ton of pressure. They didn't, allow the breakthrough. And, we know what happened in the second half. But yeah, it's a difficult one because I don't feel like, Brandon, that the team played badly today. I think they gave up a couple of cheap goals when they were stretched, and that's just going to happen when you have to go for it. But it wasn't a bad performance at all. I mean, I think the question that people have is, why don't we see this more often? Why don't we see this energy more often? Why don't we see these players seemingly give a fuck more in matches that are more winnable than this one, frankly? And I think that's probably where my head's at too.
I know Dan spelled it out here. 7 shots in the first half. Cucurella, Conte, bummer. 5 shots inside the box, more possession. Like, we knew going into this that we just had to be the first ones to score. And quite honestly, we also really couldn't allow Real Madrid to score because we don't have goals flowing from us. But if you can get the first one, it puts Real Madrid on edge. The fans continue to get behind the team and the team go. It's more of the same this season. We tried so hard, got ourselves in good positions, and just absolutely no final product. And like when Conte shot, I was at work. I think I was on a call and I was quite unprofessional. I couldn't believe he missed though either. So I was like half celebrating because I'm like, of course anyone that is going to score. And he just didn't. And we've kind of seen this, we love having N'Golo Kante back because he offers so much to the team. But the one thing he can't do that proves he's human is score regularly. If he did that, superhuman. He's an alien, like no doubt about it. But yeah, look, you go ahead.
Chelsea had a shot within the first 3 minutes. The Conte shot came in the 11th minute. The first shot that Real Madrid registered wasn't until the 20th minute. Benzema had 2 shots. Vinicius Jr. had 1 shot in the first half. Like, comprehensively, if you just took those numbers out and said, hey, I'm going to give you, 7 shots total to their 5. I'm going to give you 2 shots on target each. And 3 of those shots came from Benzema and Vinicius. I would have been like, cool. And they didn't score. Like, that's great, return on value for us in terms of being able to put them in positions where, yes, they had a shot, but it's not a high quality shot. And that would have been, if you could have foundationally built upon that into the second half, Brandon, that would have been a great place to build off of, because that is showing that you were doing the right things in the right times to limit high scoring opportunities.
Oh, for sure. And it's like Dortmund, get the first one and then go from there. But I was impressed though a little bit, but at the same time, really confused. You kind of touched on this, Nick. Played a new formation. Trevo was out of position. Or was he? One could argue. Cucurella was playing left wing back. He hasn't done that in a while. Conor Gallagher was our most attacking midfielder. You're playing in a box or a diamond. And it all kind of came together. It's not like, and this is what's like so confusing with this team. It's not like they had a week to prepare for this. We just got torched by Brighton at the weekend playing a back 4. And now we come out in a completely different system and it clicks and it works. It just, to me, that's like a mentality issue with the team, which I think we've seen based on the results this season.
It screams that they're not motivated by the day-to-day work. They're motivated by the big occasion. And that's really easy to do. Like, it's easy to get hyped up for Champions League football. It's the highest level of football that exists. And winning the Champions League trophy is something we've done recently, despite where the club has fallen. And yeah, a lot of these players were a part of that team. They understand what the moment can be. They understand what momentum in that tournament can lead you to, which is the title, right? Like, it's not hard to understand why the players are up for it. It's hard to understand why they aren't up for the other games. Why the team is so drastically different between the level of performance that we got tonight, which was generally good. Again, a couple of blemishes once you go for it, you have to score. Like, those cheap goals that we gave up in the second half are what they are. It's not great, but you could see why that happened. The team was pretty gassed at that point. But the energy in our Premier League performances just isn't there. We don't close down like that. We don't press like that. We don't see the players running like they have to. They're given a lung for the club. They're given a lung to inspire the fans. It's a lot more plotting. It's a lot less inspired. And that is the real challenge. Like, to me, as we will do many, many deep dives into where the club needs to improve, what the what the gist is, all that sort of stuff. How do you get consistent performances at a high level again, like we used to have?
Well, I know, and it just continues to get frustrating. We go in at halftime, a little worried about Reese, and we already know he's low on fitness.
Yeah, he took that like big pause in the middle of the first half where he was kind of stretching out. It looked like a calf or a hammy or something. I was like, oh, this isn't good. He came out on fire.
And I forget if it was in the first half or the second half, but like it was so bad at that one moment where like Fofana like freight trained past him to catch up to the ball because he realized that Reese wasn't going to get there. And West realized there was an opportunity like on the attack to try to pick it up and get forward. Like great teamsmanship, by the way, to support one another there. But that definitely had me questioning
teamsmanship. What the fuck is teamsmanship?
I'm in a dinner. It's Tuesday evening.
Oh my God. That's so good. Teamsmanship.
Oh, there's no teamsmanship here, clearly.
We lack a lot of teamsmanship on this podcast. Sorry. Keep going.
Can you keep going?
I ruined it for Dan. I ruined Dan's whole vibe. I'm sorry, Dan.
All right.
That was bad. That was bad teamsmanship on my part.
As we were talking about the second half, at this point, we're still in it. Really frustrating that Cucurella didn't score right for halftime. But at least there's like stuff for Lampard to be positive in the locker room. But then Cucurella, I don't know. I've seen the stills.
The stills are horrific.
Left
Don't
wing
look
back
at him.
harassing a center back of Real Madrid and left Trevo on. An island isn't even like a good description. Like Australia?
Speck of sand in the ocean.
Like he had 3 guys and about 60 square yards to cover on his own. And sure enough, they took advantage of it, absolutely worked him. Rodrigo scored, and just more of the same. Super, super frustrating. And at that point, that's it. That's game done and dusted. You're not coming back from 3-0 down.
No, but this is why Cucurella is not a wingback. We found this out many times this year. Cucurella does not have a position at all. Like he's not a left back. He's not a left center back. He's not a left wing back. He's played his best at left center back in patches, but it's been so chaotic and disruptive to what the rest of the team does. And I feel so shitty for Trev because I think outside of that moment, Trev Chalobah had an outstanding game, like a really, truly outstanding game. He did not look out of place, even though much like Rudiger playing over the last year, that's not his dominant foot. He's not a left-footed player, but like we know he's typically a right center, right back, whatever the fuck we're playing him as these days. But the distance between Cucurella, who decided then to play as a number 10 for no fucking reason whatsoever and press up, and where Trev Chalobah was is crazy. And like, do I think that Trev wishes he had that decision back to try and collapse in on Rodrigo? Of course I do. I don't think that was his best moment, but that's not indicative of his performance in that position where I thought he played very disciplined for the most part and even had a couple of blocks late in the game that would have been the 3rd or 4th goal where he recovered back and helped Thiago out even. So I don't know, Dan, my take on Chalobah is that he was not the problem today and that the problem was isolated somewhere else.
Well, it was bad decision or worse decision. Do I go after him and try to foul, or do I try to lean in and maybe get beat around and then the goal comes even easier, right? Like neither decision was good. If you're thinking that there was a better decision there, like that's a fallacy. Like that is absolutely not a real world scenario. So it was rough. Like I think that one was rough. I think Cucurella pressing forward didn't make a lot of sense, like when he doesn't have the ability to recover from that type of position. So I think that's a question mark. I think that whole left-sided center back area is going to be a huge question mark this summer when you think about the season Ian Matson has had, the way that Levi Colwell has played on loan. Like there's going to be a lot of evaluation that can be done there. And I don't think Cucurella will be happy looking back at the last couple, highlight reels or performance reels rather from the last couple of outings that he's had in that position.
No. And it's almost, I know we talked about this before the game, Brandon, like, what do you do with the left side? Chilwell obviously not available because of the right card, because of Cucurella in the previous game. So just a real double down on that front. But
you want to know how you can make sure that you play every single game?
Yeah, there you go.
Lewis Hall. I have a solution.
No, but I was curious what Lampard was going to do. Now, do I think it's realistic to start Lewis Hall in this game? Probably not. And I think especially with Cucurella's price tag, it was not really going to happen. But it's one of the things that I was early on really impressed with Graham Potter when he made that choice to just say, all right, Cucurella, you've been terrible, and we're taking you out of the firing line, and we're going to put this 18-year-old kid out there. And he's not a wing back either. He's a central midfielder, but he was better, and he can dribble, and he can pass, and he can attack players, and Cucurella just can't. I mean, take the defensive nonsense out of it for that one play. Cucurella's crossing was horrific today, and his ability to pass out of being pressured in one-on-one or two-on-one scenarios is just non-existent. We ended up going back to the center backs, to Trev on almost every occasion, or Enzo Fernandez, who played a very chaotic and not at all very good game today, had to come over and like receive the ball from him just to get him out of a pickle. Like that side, it's not good enough, man. It's especially not good enough for the price tag. And I think in these big moments, he's been trusted a lot this year in big moments, has only delivered a couple of times. And I think we just have a body of work now to look at. That's it.
Sorry, I'm reading Dimitri's tweets.
Oh no.
And I just can't handle it. As I'm like trying to do live research, he goes, I do have to say I have a little bit of sympathy for the owners, because even if a lot of the decision making was questionable, they basically ended up rolling the worst outcome of the possible range of outcomes for each decision. And like, I'm thinking about Cucurella, right? Because they paid like 65 million. And you're like, oh, whatever, young up and coming, City wanted him, whatever.
Least.
Yeah, and then he follows up, goes, look at someone like Sterling. Was it a great decision to sign him to a 5-year, 300,000 a week deal? No. A lot of people had concerns about the money and the length of his longevity, but did anyone expect that he would arrive and immediately retire? Obviously not.
I mean, if the Premier League is a dungeon master, Todd Bowley rolled a bunch of ones this year.
Yes.
Which, for those who don't know, a 1 is the lowest you can roll. That is bad.
I'm learning as we go. Frank rolled the triple dice, trying to bring on Mudryk, Sterling, and Felix. And look, here's the difference. Sterling and Felix alone, he's not risking anything at 3-0 down. Sterling, he's probably already thinking about where he's going for the summer. And I don't mean that like he doesn't care. He's not trying to get hurt or pull a muscle or anything at this point. He's going to ride this one out. Mudryk,
he's not fit either. I mean,
and all I'm saying, Mudryk, young, hungry, ambitious, he will still go run in a game like this. And he did. It's just the difference in kind of mentality and position. And you need a balance between young and experienced players. But now you get burned on the lone player, I feel like, as well, with Joao being like, well, this is done. I'm definitely not going to get hurt. I'm not coming back.
The unforgivable sin from Felix today is he does this hard work, receives with an incredible touch a ball like that's over his head, dribbles through Valverde, sprints towards the yellow carded Militao. Kai Havertz makes the correct run through the middle of the center backs. All that Felix has to do is play that ball in, and Kai Havertz has a one-on-one, which he probably misses at the end of it. And
Kai Havertz 1-on-1, I don't know. I would at least say that's a 40% chance.
Hey, I'll take 40. 40 is cool. And he dribbles it into Rudiger and doesn't get a pass off. And at that point, you heard audible boos from the crowd. Like, you cannot make that choice. Like, you have one play. That's it. You're not a Mudryk speedster. You don't have that sort of pace. You got to give the ball up and then go follow it and see if you can get an easy pass from Kai on the back post. Like, it just showed a lack of IQ in that possession. And it's why people are really, really frustrated with that. I mean, this guy was supposed to come in and help us make plays, even if he's not a natural goal scorer or a natural assister, to make plays. And that's not even really happening right now.
No. Yeah, for a few different reasons. Mount appeared late on in the game, assuming it's a fitness thing, which, again, Dan, if it is, worst possible time. We need a hero.
Yeah.
We need someone of his quality, of his caring, of his effort, and we don't get him. And then you double on the contract, and you're just like, this is all making for like a very ugly like situation for him as well. But we did get to see him, which was great. And but again, it didn't matter at that point.
He only got 4 touches. I mean, by comparison, Raheem Sterling got 20, even though he got lost possession 8 times out of those 20. So there weren't the players at the right time to try to change and impact. And if you're making it, like, I would have thought it would have been more interesting if we had made those substitutions directly after that goal was conceded. Ideally beforehand, to just try adding more attackers on, but to go the extra 8 minutes or so after the goal was conceded, it gave you less time to try to figure more out in that second half. And I was surprised maybe like Christian coming in. I mean, Lampard used him before as a wing back. Another, as you saw, Reece move, more in midfield effectively for the last part of the game. So like that was a good tactical change, but maybe someone then like Ruben would have been potentially a better option from like a height perspective. You also could have put him up top and like just let him like bounce balls off of himself onto other runners. Like, like Kai was trying to do, like give a second person who can bounce it off and try to get Mudryk into space or to get someone else into a place where they've got a 2-on-1 or a 1-on-1 to try to capitalize on the space that we could create.
But they didn't. And we lost. And yeah, look, I mean, I've started to process it, right? Because we've played a lot of matches. Chelsea have played a lot of matches in the last couple of years, right? We've basically taken every competition to its natural conclusion, whether we've won it or not. And to go out in the quarterfinals of the Champions League in pretty embarrassing fashion is a dominant display for Madrid. And they frankly could have had more. I think they were a little unlucky to not score. It's a real marker now. This team 2 years ago won the Champions League. They lost it to the champions last year in a thrilling affair. And they didn't show up for the better part of 2 matches in this tie. I think they played okay, but it wasn't nearly good enough. And now you don't have it. So, I think part of the narrative that's in my head is like, these players aren't going to play as many matches next year, right? Whoever is around. How do you, as a new staff, management, whoever, utilize this training time to improve them? I mean, that's going to be a huge thing because in addition to us having to figure out new content to put out, which is an us problem, these players are going to have a lot of midweek training sessions now where where it's usually just been match prep.
Yeah.
That's a crazy thing to think about.
Lampard's talked about fitness, but no one gives a shit about fitness now either. He said it's been a problem. Apparently there's some issues with Tuchel. And obviously he complained about lack of preseason, and it was very understandable. Potter, I guess, didn't do anything with that allegedly. And then Lampard came in. He goes, "Oh my gosh, like, of course we're not doing things. Like, this team is unbelievably unfit." And again, there's been injuries that come in and out of it. But Opta analyst tweeted that Chelsea in April 2023, you've had one goal, an 8.5 XG, 86 shots. We've had about a 0.1 XG per shot. It's all in 6 games. Like, our goal came from outside the box, and we've peppered shots from inside the box. So it's just there's something that has to change. And Nick, when you have 3.5 managers in a season, they're all going to say, I think I see what the problem is. And guess what? It's been different every single time. And so as players, they don't know what to focus on because they're constantly chopping and changing. Anyways, Real Madrid got the final one. It was a mess. It was the most embarrassing way to go out. Kepa flopping like a fish out of water. 2v1 with him inside of his 6. It was just bad news bears. So end scene. We move on. We wrap because there's nothing left of Champions League to talk about. It was bad. I would say, I think, Nick, you had the Ashley Cole video on Twitter that is doing the rounds out there.
Sign him up.
You feel like he cared. You feel like when you see Didier's quotes, you feel like the fans. I see Gary Hayes tweeting that it's a culture issue. There's something lacking, without a doubt, about kind of this team. And seeing Frank talk the way he's talked about the team throughout his short stint right now, seeing Ashley Cole act like that, I think it does kind of remind us that this isn't the usual Chelsea team.
Yeah, they're losing
without a fight.
Well, I mean, I think there was some fight today, to be fair to them. Like, I wouldn't say that, but yeah, the weekend, I would agree. In general, the season, it's been apathetic at best. And it does remind you of the character that was in the team for so long, that spine that was in the team for so long, and why the level never was really dropping beneath like a certain point, always challenging for trophies, even if we didn't, win the league. Like, there's a reason for that. And it's definitely a part of the recruitment process, and it's definitely a part of the footballing culture, and it's definitely a part of the next manager, and it's definitely a part of these fucking players to own up and figure out and fix. Like, they're already here. Like, the best way to fix a culture is from inside of it, not outside of it. It's a whole other discussion for another day that we'll have with 1,000 other people this
Look, there you go. You came up with one new episode we could do.
There you go. Culture. What does it mean?
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. We're going to take our last ad break. When we're back, talk about, can Chelsea benefit from not having Champions League next season? So again, thank the sponsors, and we'll be right back. All right. So we've done it before. But again, to Nick's point, we haven't not had Champions League or Europa League since 2016, 2017. That was a long time ago. Guys, there's a pandemic, so it feels even longer.
Europa Conference didn't even exist back then.
Correct. Todd Bowley didn't even know what Chelsea. Never mind. It was a long time ago. 2016, 2017, Antonio Conte came in ahead of that season. Came to Chelsea post Mourinho and absolutely walked the league. It was one of those things. Won the league under Mourinho, came back fat and happy, had a terrible season. Antonio Conte said, "Welcome to my fitness regiment." And they ran. And he got them fit. And they essentially got to first place in game week 12 and never relented. We all remember that Arsenal game. Switch it up. Back three, baby. David Luiz sweeper. We moved on. Here's a key difference, Nick. Who the hell is going to be our coach? Who's our next Conte? Do we want another Conte? Is it that simple?
I mean, he is available. Famously available. Yeah, man. But I think it does kind of touch on what we were kind of in the last segment, kind of circling around, is like he put his stamp very fucking clearly, and we saw this in person the first time that we met each other in Minneapolis. He made Eden Hazard run until he puked in that preseason. He was not taking a half-fit Eden Hazard as the standard operating procedure. He knew that Eden Hazard had to be at his peak physical fitness to impact the team in the way that we all know he did, right? And Eden Hazard was never better than in that season. He was unfucking believable because he was available, because he was confident, because the team had a system, because the team had a structure, because there was leadership in there. And that was a chop and change Chelsea team too. That wasn't, the classic spine of yesteryear. We had new goalkeeper. We had a back line that had been changed up. John Terry didn't even play that season, right? But it was a full reset. I mean, an absolute full reset. The button was pressed. No one had a guaranteed position in the squad. And Eden Hazard, of all of them, had to work hardest to stay in the team. Dan, I think those characteristics sound like they're required right now.
Well, I think the way I wanted to frame it is like, is winning the league next year like super obtainable?
No.
And good. Thank you for answering the question.
Was it down season, down league this season?
I think we need to paint the picture, right? Like we're going to finish likely 30-ish points off of the league leaders this season. Like that is realistic, like 30 to 35, I guess, probably points. We'll probably finish like 28 points off of the fourth place team. So like, City, hopefully God not Arsenal again next year, but let's just let this year be the aberration. City, is like a guaranteed top four finish every year. So you really have three slots to play for. If Europa is good enough for you for a year, which, I mean, realistically, you could win that and then get back in the Champions League then the following year as a guarantee and have to worry a little less about league position. But like we should have some level of like obtainable goal of improvement, and also an opportunity to at least like do better in the domestic competitions than we did this year. Like I think it should be realistic with the type of players that Chelsea have, with the recruitment that we're going to go after, with the type of manager profile that we are going to go after, that this team should see meaningful improvement in terms of performances, better in terms of improvement in finishing, because defense hasn't really been the issue. It's been a finishing problem, and being fit enough to be competitive. And I think that's, if we talk about like some profiles of what you could do with the time that you have, is like being able to drill this team to be fit enough and to get across your tactical message so that each week you go into that Premier League match looking to win it like it is a cup final, and you have 38 cup finals. That would do a lot, Brandon, to win people back over in next season.
Well, I mean, we're winless in 5. My God, the bar is so low at this point. What I would say to that is this should change the profile of coach or manager that you want. I think a certain manager can just rally the troops every 3 days and just get them up for the games and let them go out and perform. This manager or coach is going to have to keep them entertained and engaged 5 days a week. We've heard of players not liking Maurizio Sarri's training sessions. We've heard that people eventually got bored of Antonio Conte's because they're too rigid. They're going to have to find someone who can connect with the players, who can create a good environment, they can develop. There's also going to be less opportunities for minutes. Think about our bloated ass squad.
Totally. I mean, and I think that, if we're thinking about like, what does this mean without the Wednesday, almost the guarantee of Tuesday, Wednesday football, right? We have coddled a lot of unfit players over the last 5 years, right? N'Golo Kante can only play this many minutes because he's injured, right? Reece James can only play this many minutes because he's injured. all this sort of stuff. If you want to play only in the league matches or the FA Cup or the Carabao Cup matches, you're going to have to beat out the rest of this squad. And like, some players simply won't want to do it and they'll leave. Right? And some will absolutely learn to love competition again. And I hope that what comes back is not a coddling of superstars. I hope it is a strict meritocracy, one that if Lewis Hall is better than Cucurella, that Lewis Hall plays. Fuck the price tag. I know it's easy for me to say I didn't spend the money, right? But if he is going to legitimately give you a better chance than Cucurella is, Lewis Hall at 18 years, 19 years old, to get league points next year, then he has to fucking play. Period. If those are your options, he has to play. There has to be meritocracy at Chelsea again. Otherwise, it's all bullshit.
Yeah. And anyways, this is going to be very, very, very different from a required duties of the next person who comes in. And like, look, if Enrique wants to throw a fit because Chelsea didn't hire him right away, pound sand, don't care. We're trying to do what's best for the club. Like, just because it's not convenient for you, if you're a serious candidate, it won't make that big of a difference. So the job has tangibly changed, which I think is really interesting. I think the result is get back to Champions League next season. Dan, you've laid it out nicely. It's a big gap to make up. I think we know we have a couple positions that are very clearly of need to change / improve. So we'll have to see what happens, because there is a lot that's going to go, but we'll save this. We got a couple different episodes planned that we're going to talk obviously a lot about the future. It's going to be wild summer, probably not so much signings, but with like the managerial chase and the hunt, which I think will give us some stuff to do. But what we only signed 3 players last summer, Nick. Was it Fofana, Koulibaly, and Sterling in the summer? Oh, the academy signed a bunch. Yeah, Aubameyang. He came like in September, but yeah, no, it was quiet-ish. The women in the academy were much more active. So I don't know. We'll see. Dan refused to do Dan of the match again this week. Just honestly,
I don't refuse to do it.
I'm docking your pay.
Position where I can't make it happen for you.
Pay docked. Consider it done. Did you guys know that AC Milan is going to the semifinals of the Champions League?
Yeah. No, I did know that. Olivier Giroud, what a man.
Go win it, Giroud. Go win it for us.
Absolutely love him. We could use him. Could have used him.
Shocking.
The entire time.
Missed a penalty, then score. It was a full Chelsea experience for Olivier Giroud.
Rafa Leao today. Holy shit. What a player. Ollie Glanville is, I now that I've spoken his name out loud, Ollie Glanville's woken from a light slumber at 3 a.m. In the UK, and he's just crying tears that we didn't sign him instead of anyone else. But yeah, Leao, hell of a player. Giroud, hell of a player. Napoli, underwhelming, unfortunately.
Yeah. So Inter and Benfica play Bayern and City on the other side. So Milan and Madrid are through. We're waiting to see who they play, but bitter taste in the mouth, I'd say. There's no sense
City's gonna win the whole thing.
The Milan matchup, City will win, and then you have Real Madrid and City and the Milan derby.
Yep.
Wait, what? Where's the Milan derby coming in?
With Inter Milan and
Inter's
AC
up
Milan?
2-0 in their tie. So if they
in the semi, gotcha. Yeah. You're just rattling through names really quickly. Yeah. Real Madrid.
I'm already in the future. I'm living in the future already.
Real Madrid.
It's a positive place.
City.
Chelsea have just won the league again.
Well, you were the one who clearly said that was not happening next season. So
I didn't say how far in the future I went.
Hey, that is true. So anyways, that's it from us. Check the box, did the thing. Interesting discussions going on. Obviously, nobody's happy right now, and no one's telling you to be happy, but we're at least going to talk about the game and kind of some of the implications and how it goes. We'll take a look at how the rest of the season goes. If you have ideas, let us know. We'd love to hear from that. Obviously, a lot of good people in our Discord if you're looking for some friends at this point. So anyways, that's going to wrap us up. More content coming at you this week of other stuff, so keep an eye on that. But until next time, Chelsea fans, you know what to do. Keep the blue flag flying high.